Andrew Malkinson has said that the money which is on offer, which is £1 million for prisoners who've been wrongly convicted and wrongly imprisoned for 10 years or more, it sounds like a lot, but it's not, because it represents 2 decades, in his case, of lost love, of lost life, of 2 decades of sheer hell. His words. Of course, the sheer hell. He was wrongly imprisoned. And to add to that a demand for lodging, to pay for his own lodgings, is outrageous. It's like asking the axeman to, it's like paying the axeman to cut your head off cleanly. It's simply astonishing that in the 21st century we even countenance this. This is a rule which came in secretly by the House of Lords, or stealthily, I should say, not secretly, by the House of Lords in 2007, after the House of Commons had put through this sort of ruling that the people who are wrongly imprisoned should get a significant payout. Andrew Malkinson deserves a huge amount of respect and a huge amount of and a payout, compensation, because not only was he imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, then because he wasn't prepared to admit that he committed that crime, he was kept in for a further period of time. So it is extraordinary. Our system, our legal system, our punitive system. And we see something similar, actually, with Therese Coffey. She's not simply prepared to see Greenpeace people being arrested. She then wants to add her own punishment on top of that by not talking to Greenpeace or to Just Stop, or that's her job. And there's an arrogance in our system, and we need to change that. We need to fully recognize that the law deals with lawbreakers, and politics deals with politics. We have 2 hands, and we are so controlled by ministers and politicians who are basically lazy, or who simply are not capable of doing the work which is demanded of them. If they're not capable of doing that work, then maybe that work needs to be shared by others. But a contempt for the public and the way in which the government is so constantly saying, oh, we'll deal with this later, we promise we'll deal with this later, and 10 years down the line, still nothing has happened. And it only happens when there's significant publicity. And yes, of course, that leads protesters into thinking that the only way to get attention is to attack the Prime Minister's house. It does get attention. And would the government even have noticed? It seems to have turned such a blind eye to people gluing themselves to the street. And until you attack the Prime Minister's house, they don't even bat an eyelid. But gluing yourself to the street should not be the way forward in the 21st century. We need a different way to protest. Now, somebody's pointed out in the comments that strikes are very good because they add to the cohesion of the workforce. Well, the cohesion of the workforce should be defined by work, not by strikes. So I'm afraid you got that back to front. And strikes should be a last resort, not a way to cement the workforce together. If that workforce needs to be cemented by striking, then it's not doing its job properly, and the unions aren't doing their job properly. Their job is not to sow dissent, but to find solutions. And the strike and the protest are a way to attract attention, are a way to harness the goodwill of the wider population. But gluing yourself to the road and stopping ambulances, gluing yourself to the road and stopping people getting their children to school, that doesn't seem to have that effect. And sadly also, the people who are gluing themselves to the road, professional activists. This is an action. People go from one action to another action. They just seem to love the action. It's like this is their job. There must be a better way to raise awareness. And as for Malkinson, I have only the deepest of respect for him, and the deepest sadness that he had to go through this misery because no one was listening to his protests of innocence. That is a protest. I protest my innocence. And protest means to speak loudly, even to shout. So you can't have a silent protest. That is a nonsense, which has been put forward by our government. It is a nonsense, because they've fallen under the illusion that the word protest means a march, means to object to something. No. You have to go back to your dictionary and look up the meaning of the words.
On the 2nd of August 2003, I was kidnapped by the state. It has taken nearly 20 years to persuade my kidnappers to let me go. 17 years, 4 months and 16 days of that time were spent in prison. At every parole hearing, I sat before a panel who shook their heads at me, considering me to be dangerous. And all that time, the real perpetrator, the real dangerous person, was free. More recently, I was allowed to leave prison, but with my name on the sex offenders register and under tight supervision by police and probation, I was not free. And now I have finally been exonerated. I am left outside this court without an apology, without an explanation, jobless, homeless, expected to simply slip back into the world with no acknowledgement of the gaping black hole that they opened up in my life. A black hole that looms so large behind me, even here today, that I fear it will swallow me up.
The problem with Malkinson's offer of money, of compensation, is it's apparently not even going to be paid for another 2 years. I don't understand. I don't understand why our government should be so dilatory, so tardy with its payments, which it owes to people like the Windrush people, like the people who've suffered from the Horizon stupidity, the postmaster scandal. You know, these payments to those people, to those victims, have taken so long, and in most cases, in the cases of the Windrush and the Horizon scandals, it's up to the victims to come forward and prove that they are deserving of a payout. Surely it's up to the government to go and find the people that it has abused and to offer them money and to hope they accept it with goodwill. It's the government which has been abusing us, and this is an extraordinary display of arrogance by the government, and it needs to change. Because if we owe money to the tax system, HMRC will be on our back within a few days. If we owe money to the bank will be on our back within a few days, a few hours. And yet, when it comes to, when the boot is on the other foot, it's one rule for us, it's another rule for them. It's wrong. And the government should be on their knees apologising to Andrew Malkinson. On their knees.